compare the semi-annual discount rate with the semi-annual coupon rate, you can see if it's a premium or discount bond before you even calculate the price. So there's two ways in this case to figure out, is this a premium bond or is this a discount bond? So premium bonds are our low-risk bonds. So the discount rate is going to be less than the coupon rate. The rate that I'm going to use to discount cash flows is going to be less than the rate that's generating the interest. So for example, this one was 1.97 and the semi-annual coupon rate was 3.25. Similarly, for par value bonds, before I even calculate a price, I can look at the discount rate and coupon rate. The discount rate here equals the coupon rate. So you can see the discount rate was 3.25, the coupon rate was 3.25. This is what generated that 3250 cash flow. They're the same. So I didn't actually have to do any math at all. All I could do was look and go, oh, the two rates are the same. The price must be 1,000. Must be by mathematical equality. And then the last one is for discount bonds. These are high risk. So we're going to have a high discount rate. And that high discount rate is going to be bigger than the coupon rate. So these firms are risky. So the risk is going to generate a higher discount rate than an interest on the bond. Okay, so this is how this relationship works. So I can compare these two rates and figure out which one is larger, and that's going to tell me if it's par value, premium, or discount. Or I can look at the price and benchmark the price against 1,000. So two methods for determining is this a high-risk bond or a low-risk bond. Again, I can compare these two interest rates, or I can benchmark the price versus 1,000. If the price is bigger than 1,000, it's low risk. If the price is less than 1,000, it's high risk. Okay, so your homework over the weekend was to solve for yield. Was to solve for the yield of the bond. So in this part of the class on Thursday, we solved for the present value. It's very straightforward. It's either going to be a semi-annual bond or annual bond. And then I said, okay, let's flip everything upside down. And I gave you some homework that was kind of challenging. Who found the yield of that 10-year bond? Who did the homework? Who did the homework? Okay. If I give you something to do, you should really consider the task at hand. All right, let's see here. So let's talk about yields. So when we do this little mathematical exercise, I'm going to make this bigger. When we do this mathematical exercise, it's all fine and dandy. It's nice to know the price of the bond, but bond traders don't talk in terms of prices. So bond traders think in terms of I'm not necessarily interested in the dollar amount I have to put in. What I'm interested in is how much am I going to earn. Okay, so this problem just tells me what I should pay for the bond. It tells me what the bond is worth. A bond trader is interested in what is the bond going to return. And so we have this emphasis in finance on interest rates. So part one was what is the bond worth? Part two is what does the bond return or yield? And this is why you have the IY button on your calculator. So that Y stands for yield. Instead of solving for the value, we're going to solve for what this bond is producing. So we're going to flip everything backwards. This framework assumes something about the discount rate, something about the coupon rate. This backwards framework assumes equal to the present value. So for our PV, we are going to use what investors think this bond is worth. Okay, so for our PV, our present value, we are going to use what investors in the market think the bond is worth. And then we're going to use that to back out the yield of the bond. And this is not something you can do without a calculator. You must have a financial calculator to do this math. It's not possible. There's no formula to do it. Okay, so what we're going to do is, let me write this way. So here's your calculator buddies. Okay, the FV is still the face value. This is still 1,000 in this computation. It's part 2. The PMT is still the coupon payment, and you're still going to do this annual or semi-annual depending. The present value is now the market price, so that part's different, and you're going to put it in as a negative. This is what an investor would need to invest in order to get the bond. So this is the amount I would need to take out of my pocket and give to my broker and deposit in my account, and then the bond contract would be mine. The N is still the number of periods to maturity given in the contract. So this is in the contract. This is the payment is from the contract. The face value is from the contract. And this is from the market. MKT for market. I could go look it up. Okay? This is what we're going to compute. For an annual bond, this is easy. You just compute it. No problem. For a semi-annual bond, this output, this IY, is it the 6-month IY or the annual IY that your calculator is going to give you? Your calculator is going to give you a 6-month. So if you convert the N and the payments, you're still going to convert the N and the payment, just like we did last class. And then the calculator will produce a 6-month yield. We want a 1-year yield. So you're going to take that 6-month Y and multiply it by 2, and that's the annual yield on the bond. Okay, so we have semi-annual bonds for the present value. You all did that last week. That wasn't too bad. You just said, oh, I need to convert the number of periods double. I cut the interest rate in half. I cut the coupon in half, and you did that little math. For the yield, you're going to do the same thing for the number of periods in the payment, and your calculator knows you're in semi-annual world, and so it's going to give you the semi-annual yield. And so you have to take that semi-annual yield from the calculator and convert it to an annual number. So we'll do an example of that today. But let's first just do some simple annual bonds just to practice a little bit. So if you look in your packet on page 2, it says example of a yield on a bond. So let me do an example of that. So we're to the part that says example. So here's an example. Okay, so we can have a 10-year bond. I'll do a semi-annual bond. A 10-year bond with semi-annual payments. The annual coupon rate is 7%. And it is currently selling in the market market for 1031.54. So I'm going to write out my buttons so I can keep track of what I'm doing. So I know it's asking for the yield because find the yield. Okay, so it's asking for the yield, so I'm going to find this one. So I'm going to circle it so that I remember I'm finding this is a yield problem and not a present value problem. Okay, so the next thing I want to do is figure out what the contract terms are. So the contract terms, this is 1,000. In this class, it's always 1,000. The contract terms for the payment is 7% annually. So I'm going to divide that by 2. So 7 divided by 2 is 3.5. I'm going to multiply that by 1,000. This is my face value. So this is the method I always do to find the payment. Coupon rate times the face value, and if it's semi-annual, you divide by 2. It doesn't matter if you divide the percentage and then multiply, or if you multiply and then divide by 2, it's not going to matter. You'll get 35 either way. Another piece of the contract is that it's 5 years. So 5 times 2, this is 10 pay periods. Okay, so those are the 3 terms from the contract, and then to find the yield, I need the price of that investors are currently thinking this bond is worth, and I need to put that in my calculator as a negative number. So 10 is N, 1031.54 negative is present value, 35 payment, 1,000 future value, compute the yield, and this yield that it gives me is 3.1278. This is for 6 months because it's a semi-annual bond. So this was semi-annual, this was semi-annual. This always agrees with the other 2 pieces, and so this is for a 6-month period. So my last step is to take that number and multiply it by 2. And I get the yield on this bond is 6.2557 annually. So for this semi-annual bonds, you have to remember that extra step of multiplying the interest rate by 2 because your calculator is giving you just the 6-month rate. Any questions? You ready to do something? Okay. You're going to do the next 3 in your notebook. I'm going to put them up here so you can see in case you didn't bring it, which you should bring it to every class. If you have the slides printed out, they're in the slides. Okay, so go ahead. It's blurry, it's so close. Go ahead and find the yield to maturity yield for these 3 bonds. They're annual bonds. That's all you need to know. Ready, set, go. so let's run through these three bonds, and then we're going to find another principle that arises here. So we flipped this problem over. If I can flip up there. Probably not. Okay, I'm going back to my paper. So for the first bond, I have N. I'm going to do it like this. It's 10 years. And the coupon is 7.5%. And the IY, I'm going to leave blank. And it's currently selling for $9.25. So this is my price in the market. And it has a face value of 1,000. Or par value, same thing. So if you go back to that face value to the slide with the contract terms and the vocabulary words, face value and par value were the same vocabulary. Before I do anything, I can look at the price and the face value of this bond, and I know that it is what kind of bond? Discount. This is going to be a discount bond, and I can tell because the price is less than 1,000. Selling at a discount, like a good deal. But along with that good deal comes what? Risk. So risk is going to come along with this discount bond's price here. So is this going to be high or low, do you think? High. So it's got to be high because this has got to be a risky bond. So what is this number? 8.65. So on your calculator, you can find this because the coupon is $75. So 10 is in, 925 negative is the present value, 75 is the payment, 1,000 is the base value, compute the yield, 8.6507. So now let's look at the next bond. The next bond was 14 years, 10% annual coupon. Selling for $1,494.93 and a par value of 1,000. Is this a discount or premium bond? Premium, and so it's got to be what level of risk? Got to be low risk. That means my yield should be low. If I'm not taking very much risk, I should not be earning very much return. So since this got to be a low risk bond, this yield has to be low. So let's see what it is. So my coupon is $100. So 14 is N. 1494.93 negative is the present value. 100 is the payment. 1,000 is the face value. Compute the IY. Did you get 5%? Good. Okay, and what did you get for the last one? 6? Just 6? Okay, just 6. So the last one was 6. Also a premium bond. Okay, so what do you learn here? You can actually look at the price versus the face value. So where investors have this bond pegged at, you can look at the price versus the face value, and that tells you something about risk, and that tells you something about what you should get for this number here. So we have this relationship that for a premium bond, the yield to maturity is going to be less than the coupon rate. Okay, so in your notes, this is called market. This is the market yield. Okay, so this is the yield based on the market, what investors think. The yield to maturity is going to be less than the coupon rate for a premium bond. For a discount bond, we can see what's going on with the yield to maturity. The yield to maturity is bigger. The yield to maturity is larger than the coupon rate. The intuition here is when the price is really low, not only do you get the coupon payments, but you also get the capital gains. So for a discount bond, this investor gets the coupon along the way, those interest payments that you make on your debt. And also, the investor gets this difference in price. So the investor in this case gets $75 extra in addition to these coupon payments. So plus a capital gain due to the change between the price and the face value. So I invest $925. Along the way I get these coupon payments, and then I get $1,000 back at the end. That seems like a pretty good investment. Here I have to invest, wow, almost $1,500, but I'm happy to do it because I get $100 for 14 years, and then I get $1,000 back at the end. So the yield is lower here because I'm not getting that capital gain. It's still a positive yield because I'm getting the interest payment. So I'm happy to do this investment in order to get this $100 interest payment every year for 14 years. Questions? Okay, so discount bonds are going to be risky. They're going to pay off more in the event the firm doesn't default or doesn't miss a payment. They'll pay off more. You get the interest payment, you get the difference between the price and the face value. But for a premium bond, you still are going to get that coupon payment. The low risk is very attractive to investors. So a lot of investors invest in bonds because the firm is contractually obligated. There's this legal obligation. And if they're low risk, it's a very steady stream of regular cash flows that the investor doesn't have to worry about. So a lot of retirement accounts go into these premium low risk bonds. Other questions? Okay, we are going to move on. So next page, turn the page. We are going to learn something about what happens over time with these bonds, because these bonds can change prices as we move along. So if you think about, a contract, this bond contract, what happens is the firm issues the contract and borrows money. So the firm says, I need to borrow a lot of money, a large amount. So they structure a bond issuance, or the municipality, whoever's raising the money, they structure a bond issuance. And they have all these contracts with all of these terms, and when they release them out into the market, that's how the firm raises money. Once those contracts are out and investors have them, it is possible to trade that contract to somebody else. So if I have a corporate bond and I decide, I'm not really liking the way that company looks, I can trade my corporate bond out of my portfolio. For some bonds, this is very common. They trade a lot. They trade all the time and they never really find a settling place. For most bonds, they will trade and eventually find a settling place very quickly, and then they stay there and they don't move. So what happens for some corporate bonds is retirement portfolios, pension funds, hedge funds, mutual funds, they will pick up the bond, the contract, and they will just hold it until the contract expires. And so in bond world, we kind of see this weird separation where some contracts are traded a lot, and then some contracts get taken up by investors and they just hold them until the end. They don't want to trade them away. They really like the contract, so they hold it. But if you were to trade the bond, stuff would happen over time. What if the firm changes a CEO? Or what if the Federal Reserve raises or lowers interest rates? There's all of these things that can happen because these bonds, 10, 14, 15 years, that's a long time away. Imagine if you borrowed and you committed to paying something back 15 years down the road. A lot could happen. So we want to see, what happens to the bond over time? What happens to this little contract that's being traded around or that's being held? What happens to that little contract over time? And so we have this relationship that, the second bullet point, as we get closer and closer to the end of the life of the bond, the price approaches par value. So as we get closer and closer to the end, the price approaches 1,000. That's the result. As we get closer and closer to the end, the price approaches 1,000. The intuition is this: as we get nearer and nearer to a sure thing, that $1,000 is a sure payment. As we get closer and closer to that, your willingness to pay becomes more like the sure thing. So let me show you a picture, and then we'll get to those next 2 bullet points in a minute. So this is a picture. Let me tell you what this picture is describing, and I left you room in your notes to draw this picture because I think it's important. It has a test question based on this graph, and you literally just have to, most students will draw this picture on their notepad, and then it's a matter of just keeping track of which piece is which. Okay, so this is a 10-year, 3 10-year bonds. So the light green is a premium bond, the black line is a par value bond, and then the dark green line is a discount bond. So I have 3 bonds. And I have 10 years to go to maturity. They have 3 different coupon rates because it's premium, par, and discount, so the coupon rate's different for those 3. So you can see that the light green has a 13% coupon and the dark green has a 7% coupon, and it's going, we want to see what happens 10 years away. So this is, imagine this is today. So mark it here, this part is today. And we have 10 years to go, and at the end of 10 years, what is the bond going to pay? What does the bond pay at the end of 10 years? Yes, you're right, $1,000. So the bond is going to pay $1,000 right here. Sure thing, like we know it's going to happen, unless for some reason the firm defaults or something. But in the contract it says $1,000. So when we're 10 years out, and we know we have this promise of $1,000, a lot could happen in 10 years. I might not get my money. This dark green discount rate firm, that high risk firm, it might go bankrupt. My premium bond firm, I don't know, they might take a different kind of strategy. A lot can happen in 10 years' time. So because there's this variation in risk about what might happen, the discount rate is going to cause these prices to convert to be what they are today. So based on the discount rate. So we're going 10 years down the line. As I get closer, this is a key concept from chapter 5. As I get closer, the discount, the number of periods to go to maturity is less. So what happens to the present value as I reduce the number of periods? Think about that in your head for a minute. So now it's shorter. I don't have as far to go, and also there's more certainty involved. So 10 years out, a lot of things could happen. When I get to 5 years out, there's less chance for something to happen. I'm less worried. And so the discount rate that I'm using to discount the bonds is going to reflect the fact that I'm less worried right here. When I get to this part, let's be like a week before the bond is due. Okay, so let's go 1 week before the bond is due. What's going to happen in a week? How much money are you going to get? In a week, you're going to get $1,000. What are you willing to pay for that $1,000 1 week from now? Would you be willing to pay $1,005? Would you be willing to pay $999? If we only have a week to go, shouldn't the bond price kind of look like what we know we're going to get in a week? Does that make sense? We only have a week to go and we know we're getting 1,000. Shouldn't the bond look kind of like 1,000? And so we have this concept that the closer we get to the end of the life of the bond, the closer it converges to that $1,000 threshold. Okay, so the key concept here is that second bullet point. It's going to converge. Again, the intuition is the closer you get, the less risk there is about what's going on. There's more uncertainty. We have less years to discount. And so so we get closer and closer to what the true value of the bond is, and the true value is 1,000 on that last date. Okay, so look at the premium bond. The premium bond is the top one. Is it going up or down? It's decreasing. So if you're a premium, you have to decrease to 1,000. If you're a discount bond, you have to increase to the 1,000. And that's those second bullet points. A premium bond will decrease, it will go down to 1,000. The discount bond will increase and it will go up to 1,000. That's a test question. All you have to do is draw the graph and remember that premium is on top and it's decreasing, discount's on the bottom and it's increasing, and this is also on one of your financial accounting tests. You may not remember, but it was there. It's now the second time you're seeing this concept. Okay, so this is the key that we have going on with these bonds. They have to converge to the $1,000.
What's the answer to the question that's on the slide? If required rate of return remains at 10%, and it's just going to stay out?
Sorry?
The question on the top of that will have the value of these rates, required rate of return remains at 10%.
The value of the bonds, the premium bond would decrease and the discount bond would increase. So the value of these bonds would have to converge to the $1,000. Even if the discount rate remains at 2%, simply because your in becomes 0. So you're putting in an in of 0, so it's just the face value. So even if we kept it at 10, these would still converge because the number of years is getting less and less. Yes?
So on the test, how will we be made, or how will we be asked to draw that on the test?
Why would you need to draw that on the test?
No, how will we draw that?
Oh, you don't have, the question's not going to force you to draw it. The question's going to say, if you have a bond worth $1,184 with 10 years to maturity, what can you expect the price to do as you approach maturity? So it'll ask you to say, one of the choices will be a premium bond will decrease as maturity approaches, which is a concept. So most students on their test or on their notepad, on their scratch paper will draw that, and then it's just a matter of remembering is it increase or is it premium or discount. And so I'll give you a bond and say what is this bond price going to do over time? Will it go up or will it go down? Okay. We have, because we like interest rates so much in finance, we have another type of yield that has its own name. And this is a vocabulary word for you on the test. It is called the current yield. You will be asked to calculate the current yield, and this is designed to be like a 30-second question that you don't have to think very much about. Because all you do for current yield is put the payment on top, the numerator, and the price in the denominator. So it's a fraction with the payment in the numerator and the price in the denominator.
So when you say the price, that's the market. So
The market price. The market price goes in the denominator. This tells me what my coupon, my interest payment is giving me based on my investment. So based on my investment, what does this interest look like? And it's called the current yield. So you just divide the two numbers, coupon divided by price. There is a relationship that goes with this variable. And the relationship is that discount bonds have a low current yield and premium bonds yield, high yield to maturity. For a premium bond, it's low risk, so the yield to maturity is going to be low, and so the yield to maturity will be lower than the current yield. So we have this little relationship that the yield to maturity is so low, it's below the current yield on the bond. The current yield just means I take whatever the price is right now. That's why it's called current. So I take the current price and I figure out what does this interest payment look like relative to the current price. Okay, so, oh man, don't look. I don't want that there. Okay, let's find, now you can look. Okay, let's find the current yield. You have a 10-year bond, a 9% coupon, and it's annual, it says annual coupon, and it's selling for $887 with a face value of 1,000. So you just need to pick these right pieces. What is the current yield on this bond? So what'd you get? 0.15. So I'm going to take my $90 coupon. So 9% times 1,000 gives me my coupon payment. I take my $90 coupon. I divide it by the current price of the bond. Bless you. And I get 10.15. Okay, is this a premium or a discount bond? Discount because it's less than 1,000. So the 887 is low, it's less than 1,000. It's a discount, so is that high risk or low risk? High risk, and so is the yield to maturity going to be higher or lower than 10.15? It's high risk and high yield, so it's going to be higher than 10.15. Okay, so since this is a high risk bond, its yield to maturity, its high yield is going to be higher than what the current yield to maturity, the current yield looks like. Okay, the current yield only picks up the coupon payment, and so the yield to maturity takes into account the EV versus FV amounts, whereas the current yield is really just picking up what does my coupon feel like based on my investment. Okay, so the yield to maturity should be higher here, should be bigger than the current yield. Okay, guess what? We have one math part left of this chapter. That's it. The rest of this chapter is concepts. So we have done, let me recap so that you know where we are, because we're about to switch gears for a little while. And let me give you, this is all of the things that you should be able to do. Okay, we have done okay, so this is for bonds. We have calculated the present value of a bond for annual and semi-annual. We have calculated the yield to maturity for an annual, and you need to your homework is going to make you do it for a semi-annual bond, and it's also on the test. So annual and semi-annual bond, we will practice that some more. So 4 things: present value annual, present value semi-annual, yield annual bond, yield semi every 6 months, current yield, that easy little fraction. You have to be able to calculate the coupon payment be very vocab relationship concept intensive. Okay, so we're gonna transition to some more talking points on these bonds that doesn't have any math associated. Okay, any questions about what we've covered so far? Not bad, right? This is much better than time value of money chapter 5. Do you agree? Yes, I thought you might. Okay, so for the next page in your notebook, until we get to page 5, we'll do more math on page 5. But on pages 3 and 4, this is all concepts, so this is where a lot of the concepts are coming from on the next test. So we're going to go through some vocabulary words, and these make easy multiple choice questions. The bottom of page 3 talks all about risk. So risk is something we really care about in finance. We measure risk, we assess risk. Part of that is because, bless you, you want to be prepared, but part of that is because firms have rules about what they are and are not allowed to do. For example, a firm like Apple can save up all of their cash and they can still call it short-term investments cash on the balance sheet, but they could actually invest that cash. So Apple has a cash balance that they call cash that is partially invested, and it's partially invested in corporate bonds of their partners. And so they are going to care about, well, what risks are we taking with our cash? What risks, like, could I get this money back really quickly if I wanted to? If you are using bonds in a retirement portfolio, you might care very much about the risks involved. Okay, so you might care, oh, I don't want to pick something that where I might lose all of my retirement, or I don't feel comfortable with the market moving up and down all the time to even be in the bond market. Okay, so there's different risks that come with these contracts, and there's 3 that are really important. And the first one is interest rate risk. And this is actually really important within the last 10 years or so, not so much 10 years ago, but within the last 5 years, because we know the Fed is going to be changing interest rates. The Fed has said we are going to increase interest rates, and when they change the interest rates, it causes the price to move. So what happened, go back to the very first thing we did. What happened when you had the bond, what happened to the present value when the bond interest rate was low? Was the price high or low? If the if interest rates are low, prices should be high. And when interest rates are high, prices will be low. We have this awkward inverse relationship in bond world. It was the very first big concept we did, the math. We said, oh look, when the interest rate's high, the price is low. Interest rate's low, the price is high. So prices move when the interest rate moves. So when I get my bond contract and I'm all locked in, if I wanted to sell it to somebody else, the price would be moving. So if I have my bond contract and I hold it and I keep it forever, I don't really care a hill of beans about this risk. It doesn't matter to me. And that is the last bullet point, and I would underline that if I was you. If I'm holding the contract, I hold it to maturity and I keep it forever, this risk is pointless. I don't care because I'm just holding it. But if I have one of these contracts that tends to just trade and trade and trade and trade and it never really finds a home, if I have one of those, then when I go to trade it away, the price will have moved. I bought it, but then when I go to trade it, the price will have moved. That's called interest rate risk, and it comes when you want to sell or buy a contract, the price moves because the interest rate is moved. Okay, so this only matters if you plan on buying or selling a contract, and it relates to the fact that the prices move around when the Fed or when the interest rates are moving around. So if I'm a bond investor, I really watch what the Federal Reserve is doing very closely. I care about those Federal Reserve movements. If I have a long-term bond, this is a bigger problem. Why? Because there's more chance that the Fed actually does something. So if I have a 2-year bond, what is the Fed really going to do in 2 years? If I have a 10-year bond, the Fed could move interest rates a lot in a 2-year period. Look at what the financial crisis did. Interest rates were higher before the crisis, and the Fed lowered them right away and has kept them very, very low. And imagine if you had to experience that jump. Okay, so if you are a long way out, more likely the Fed does something, and this is a bigger risk. Next risk, reinvestment rate risk. This slide has so many words. This is really not that complicated. The risk is if the interest rate moves, and what you want to do is reinvest your money. So do you ever, sometimes you have a financial asset, and when it pays you money, you take the money and you spend it. Some things are like that. Like, I don't know. We have some bonds where they pay you, a lot of retirees, they get the money, and then they need the money, and then they spend the money. This model, when we calculate the yield to maturity, it assumes that when you get that coupon, you actually reinvest it. You don't just take the money and spend it. So the yield to maturity we calculated, it assumes behind the scenes that the coupon goes back in. And you can actually set up an investment account so that when it pays you, it is directly redeposited back into your account. You can set your account up that way. So this model assumes that that's what you're doing. When interest rates are moving around, because of the Fed or banking system and the interest rates are moving, the firm does something risky and interest rates move, then when you reinvest it, you might not get it at the same rate you had before. That's what this risk is. This is for the scenario where I get my interest, my coupon, and I put it back in. What if I can't put it back in at the same thing I had before? What if interest rates moved and I get something worse? Okay, so this is called reinvestment rate risk. It comes from wanting to reinvest my coupons at the same really good rate I had before, and I don't want to reinvest them at a worse rate than what I had before. That would make me unhappy. The last two ones work in opposite directions. So when interest rates are high, when I go to reinvest my coupons, I get something even better. But my interest rate risk, my price has gone way down. When interest rates are low, then when I go to reinvest my coupons, I get something worse, but now the price of my bond is really good. So these two things make an investor equally offsetting unhappy. Okay? Can you repeat what I just said? Yeah, so this risk is I'm worried about putting my coupons back in. If interest rates go up, I'm not worried, I'm happy. I put my coupons back in and I get something better. When interest rates are low and I put my coupons back into my account, my interest rate is worse. Okay, so I'm going to write this on the board so that you can see. So let's make this interest rate so that people at home can see. I will write over here. Okay, so let's make this column interest rate. And we have high and low. Okay, so they're either going to be going up or going down. This is the price, and this is my interest rate risk, we call it, and this is related to the price of the bond. When I go to sell the bond, what I want is a high price, and that goes with low interest rates. These two things go together. So when interest rates are low, the present value of the price is very high. We saw that. This is a principle. Remember we saw when the discount rate, this is coming from the discount rate. When the discount rate is low, the PV was high. We saw that last week. So what I want when I sell my bond, I want a high price. The coupon rate, coupon payment, is the part that's related to reinvestment rate risk. When I'm putting my coupons back into my gives me something better. So if I'm wanting to sell my bond, I want low interest rates. When I'm reinvesting my coupons, I want high interest rates. That's this like tension that comes in the bond world. But let me tell you this, both of these risks are pretty small. These are not super concerning interest rate risk because the Fed has been so consistently low, and only within the last 3 to 5 years, people have started going, oh, the Fed's definitely raising interest rates. So we're definitely transitioning from this world into this world. Like that's the direction we're going. You can anticipate going this direction from low to high for the next 10 years. The risk that really, really matters in bond world is really just this one. This is really the risk that matters. This is default risk, and this is the main risk. So the other two, what kind of question might I ask you? I might ask you just about the vocabulary of that thing. I might say, an investor is worried about reinvesting their coupons, and you're going to say, oh, that's investment rate risk. Or I might say, an investor is worried about selling their bond, and then you would say, oh, that's interest rate risk. So very vocabulary centered on the other two. On this one, there's going to be multiple questions, and that's because this is the most important risk in bond world, and it's the risk that the payer doesn't pay. In the mortgage world, this would be the risk that the homeowner doesn't pay the mortgage. They miss a payment. They're late on a payment. All of those would be bad. Okay, so in debt world, if you miss a payment, if you're late, if you just don't pay at all, you go bankrupt, all of those are bad scenarios, and that's the default risk, and that drives a large part of the bond value. Okay, so default risk is the risk that they don't follow through on the legal contract. Big risk. We have what's called the default premium. So on that interest rate chapter, chapter 6, right between chapter 8, we talked about interest rates. So chapter 8, this test, we talked about interest rates, and we had that D variable for default. And we said if you have a high likelihood of default, you're stacking a big building block on top of the interest rate. That's true. It's called the default premium. It has a name. So when I have a high likelihood of default, I'm going to be adding a lot of return onto that bond. I'm stacking a big old piece of risk on top of my bond, and so my interest rate has to reflect that risk. The higher the default, the higher the building block that's getting stacked on the interest rate, and the higher the yield will have to be. So the higher the likelihood the firm goes bankrupt, the more return you're going to yield on this bond. So what am I going to do? I don't know if the firm is going to go bankrupt. I don't have time to look up all of these corporate bonds. I don't have time to look up every single company and see what's going to happen. So somebody has done it for us. So every bond gets a grade. Every bond gets a grade. And it's called the bond rating. So I left you lots of space so that you can write. You don't need to write the whole table. But what you need to write is what's good and what's not good. So there's two agencies that the federal government has said, yes, we approve and accept their ratings. There's lots of other rating agencies, but they're not always acceptable by government regulation and banking regulation. Okay, so these are the two that are the most widely used because banking regulation and all of that accepts them. This is the one that is the most widely cited, the S&P. So basically, if you have an A, so just like your grade, that is low risk, solid reputation, great firm, and there's a threshold at triple B and is called investment grade. Okay, that group is called investment grade bonds. Investment grade bonds have a stamp of approval and are allowed to be invested in by lots of different things. So usually if a company has some sort of investment criteria or rules, they will restrict it to the set of investment grade bonds. So once you hit into BBB, you suddenly are eligible for lots of investors who have had rules otherwise. Okay, so AAA, AA, and BBB are called investment grade. They are a separate class. Below that, BB, B, CCC, and below, that is called non-investment grade, affectionately known as junk. So those are called junk, J-U-N-K, or non-investment grade bonds. So which of these bonds do you think has greater risk? Investment grade or non-investment grade? Non-investment grade. The junk bonds these are going to be your discount bonds. Those junk bonds are your discount bonds. The investment grade bonds are going to be your premium bonds. These are low risk, good reputation, solid, steady firms and cities who promise, follow through, they don't miss payments, they have solid income statements, solid balance sheet, they're doing all of the right things. Those are going to be investment grade bonds. Everybody else is going to be below, in the low range, your junk, high risk, high yield. So every contract, when an issuer does an issuance, that issuance gets a stamp, a rating. Every issuance gets a rating. So as an investor, not only do I get the contract, but I get to see what the rating of the company was. So the company as a whole can get a rating, but then each issuance can also get a rating. The reason we talk about ratings is because this is part of what contributed to the financial crisis that happened in 2008. So imagine if you invested in something that had a rating of AA and it ended up going bankrupt or defaulting. Would you be surprised? Yes, you'd be very surprised. But that's what happened during the crisis. So these agencies use a model. They take a lot of data from the company and they use a model to assign the rating. If the model is wrong, or if they don't fully understand how everything is connected, these can actually be distorted from the true risk of default. So what happened during the crisis, some people argue the rating agencies intentionally inflated ratings. Some people argue that the rating agencies could not understand the correlation between assets fully and their model was wrong. So there's a big debate in finance. Credit ratings is a very touchy topic. Some people think they're incentive-driven and they're going to distort what's happening in the financial system. And other people think, well, financial models are not always right and they just happen to get it wrong during the crisis. The more connected pieces are, the more complex, the harder it is to assign a rating. So if you have a security that is very correlated with lots of other things, or is very complex, it will be very hard to assign a rating to that security. It's hard to understand all of the risks involved. This measure is supposed to capture risks. So if you don't really know all the risks, how can you really assign a stamp to all of that risk? So this, we're going to talk about corporate bonds. Ratings are rated for all kinds of bonds. Every kind of bond receives a rating. Even securitized packages have ratings, so even things that are not bonds get rated. Things like mortgage-backed securities and things like that. So for the last part of this chapter, we're going to focus primarily on corporations. And we're going to say, what do corporations use these bonds for, and what do they look like? So corporate bonds are a little bit income statement, and they're going to look, remember chapter 4, think back in your head. In chapter 4, we had a section called debt ratios. Do you remember that? Okay, 2 of the debt ratios were the debt ratio, which is the capital structure, and the times interest earned. Those 2 things are going to be very important for the rating agency. The other thing that's important is their liquidity. How much cash does this firm have? And the reason the agency looks at that is because they're saying, do they have enough for a rainy day? When that rainy day comes along, are they going to be okay? Or are they going to not have enough cash ready to go? But they also look at other things like, where does this debt lie? Hi. Where does this debt lie in terms of the other bonds that this firm has issued? Is the debt secured? What do you think secured means? They can pay it off? What would guarantee them to be able to pay it off? Yeah. Yeah, kind of like collateral. Very good. So there's something that's backing up that bond. It's not just a financial claim, but it's a financial claim with something behind it. Okay, so it's going to depend on the type of bond that it is will dictate the rating that the firm receives. And we're going to stop. Don't put anything away. Wait. We have an announcement this morning. Dr. Mercer, our associate dean, is here to talk to you about another interesting opportunity.
Good morning. Thanks for having me yet again in this class. I feel like I've been here more than Dr. Cardella. A couple of quick announcements, if you would. You might recall I was here, 3 weeks ago with Dr. Myers. We were talking about a study abroad opportunity for the Finance 3323 class, Financial Markets Institutions. We're going to take students to New York and London, do it over about a month this summer. Unfortunately, we couldn't get what we consider to be a critical mass of students to make that trip able to go. So instead, we're just going to go party in New York for 10 days. Not kidding. You can smile. Come on, it's fun. It's the dance, I know. No, we're in all seriousness. Do you have my presentation?
No, I can split up.
If you don't mind. We're just going to basically call it, Red Raiders on Wall Street. We're going to go out for about 10 days, take interested students. We'll probably prioritize on finance majors, but we would likely take any interested major. We're going to try to cover all of the costs of the trip except your food. So 10 days in Manhattan, seeing some really cool firms, alumni, sightseeing, et cetera, et cetera. The idea being that a number of our students simply don't have the opportunity to meet very, very successful alumni who just happen to work on or near Wall Street. And the idea being that they want to be very helpful and network with you and get to know you. So what better way than for us to help you pay to go do this thing? So we'll head out there probably a Friday or Saturday through the following weekend. Okay? At this point, you have absolutely no commitment to make, but we'd love to know that you're interested. That's it. If you have any interest in this at all, please email Whitney Hill. Whitney is the area academic coordinator, the support person for the area finance. Email her and simply say, I'm interested in that New York trip. Just so we have your email address. We'll start thinking about the number of students that we can take, some of the logistics, the cost, those kinds of things. This is going to be a really cool trip for a number of students, okay? So that's all I need from you is just a, hey, I'm interested with you. The other thing, especially if you're a finance major, this is absolutely cat daddy. This is one of the coolest things we've come up with in a long time, okay? So please pay attention to this, especially if you're a finance major. We have a new certificate in commercial bank management that we're going to roll out this fall. So we want to have students that are in this class aware of this because you're perfectly timed for this, okay? So you can read as well as I can, but I'll read with you. No additional hours required beyond basic finance major. Significant scholarship opportunities. We have people in place who are getting us literally millions of dollars to support this program. Paid summer internships with participating banks, full-time job opportunities, interaction with leading bankers from around the state. Next. Thank you. The important thing, probably one of the most important things on this slide, is that if you're interested in this certificate, which will absolutely 100% pretty much guarantee you a really good job, because banks love students who have one or two extra courses that understand banking, is, oops,
Sorry.
that's right, is in fall, the very top line, certificate courses and timeline, Marketing 4350. We have hired an expert consultant who does nothing but consult for banks on personnel issues and selling issues, leadership, those kinds of things. This guy is dynamite. His name is Tim Tivis. He's going to teach that Marketing 4350 class this fall. It's going to be a special section number for finance majors. If you're interested in this, you absolutely have to get into that course. There will be room for you if you're interested, okay? So the other things can kind of wait, but if you're interested in the certificate, you might want to email Whitney Hill and say the same thing. But that Marketing 40, you guys start to pre-register April 4th, correct? Okay. So that Marketing 4350 class, you'll have to see an advisor and say, I want to do the certificate in banking and get into that section, okay? This is absolutely, this is a really, really cool thing with a lot of money behind it and a lot of banks saying, we want to hire Rawls students.
Can I just add, I've talked to several students who really like this class, but you feel very risk averse about going down the path of finance. This is a very nice path that is very, you will have to work hard, but it is laid out for you, okay? So if you are one of those risk averse people who say, I just can't, I just want something that's more structured, this might be something for you to think about, especially if you're really enjoying this class.
I apologize. Notice bullet point 3 says that you need to register for the following classes in fall 19 as well. So safest thing is when you see your advisor, you go to or take a picture of this with your phone. But definitely get into those specific courses, okay? Thank you all.
We're finishing bonds on Thursday.
Hey, by the way, we will be docking Dr. Cardell's pay. Just to let you know.